it's known by another name that's called potluck. And what that means is there's going to be a lot of food in a little while, and if you're with us and you didn't know that, there's always plenty, so please stay, and we'll be serving out here in Duncan in just a few minutes after worship. Thinking about potluck, we do have, I could name 2 men here who are cooks, and I know that they bring stuff to potluck. But when we think about potluck, it's mostly the ladies that do all the work. Have you ever noticed that? And it's also the ladies who seem to do all the cleanup too. So I just want to say, ladies, thank you for all you've done to make this a great day for us to enjoy together. And well, thank you guys too. But as always, the ladies tend to do a lot of work. An ancient philosopher, I need to pause just a second. Speaker's prerogative, if you're following in the outline, Romans 3 got omitted at the last minute. So if you wonder where that went, I'll save that for another day. That's just for the intro. So, an ancient philosopher wrote, I pray thee, O God, that I may be beautiful within. Now, isn't that a great thing to say? To be beautiful within. How different is this from much of the thinking of our world, and of course superior to the thinking of the world. Because in our world, we tend to be concerned with the outside, the appearance, the image, the clothing, and we have so much in our culture forgotten the heart. For it is the heart, not the clothes, that make the person. Just so happened that by chance, or maybe not by chance, I was reading this morning a little bit in the Wall Street Journal, which I read every morning, about a 17-year-old TikTok influencer. And she has 3 million followers. And what she does is she produces little 2-minute videos talking about different outfits every few days, different ones. And she tells me where I got this top and how you fix it with these pants or whatever. So I realized the trouble is I had to work my way out of that. So I don't care that she does fashion shows on TikTok, but the point is 3 million people will watch a 17-year-old tell you what kind of clothes to wear. And that tells us something about our culture. We are still focused on what people look like and what they wear instead of what's in the middle of their heart. Jesus, of course, puts the focus in exactly where it needs to be, where he says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. It's hard to imagine anything more sinful than that, more humbling than this. It's like a bright light shining right into my heart, illuminating what I am on the inside. Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart. We need to begin by focusing on 2 key words. The first word is heart. Now, if you've been in my Bible class regularly, this is going to be a review for you, but I know all of you are not there. The first word is heart, and we know that the gospel of Jesus Christ is always focused on the heart. And Jesus came into a religious world that was overly focused on the externals. They were very focused on getting the sacrifices right and the rituals right and getting them all performed on time, but they so often missed the heart of things. So much did they focus on the externals that Jesus told them that oftentimes they're more worried about what the outside of the cup looks like than they are about how clean the inside of the cup is like. Now, if you come to my house and you find a cup that's dirty on the inside, please let me know. We'll give you a clean one all the way. But here are folks who are focused on the outside. And when I think of that, I remember a remarkable event that happens in the last days, last hours of Jesus' life. The Jewish leaders had brought Jesus before Pilate, and they brought him there to have Pilate pronounce a sentence of death on him. And of course they have to do that because Pilate is the Roman ruler. They do not have the legal authority to pronounce death. Jesus is their religious enemy, and they want him dead. But Pilate is in what's called the Praetorium, and they will not enter the Praetorium because they will be ceremonially defiled and not be able to observe the Passover. So here are people who won't be ceremonially defiled, but they're calling for the murder of Jesus. That's okay. But we got to make sure we have the externals right. So Jesus compared some of them to whitewashed tombs, pretty on the outside, but inside full of corruption. But God has always wanted to focus on the inside. Hosea said, you think your sacrifices are the heart of it all. But he reminds them, God desires steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. But sadly in Jesus' day, and I'm sure in our day as well, many people fell into what you might call a religious trap, following rigorous rules, but missing the heart. And Jesus said to them on another occasion, he said, you're tithing, which you're supposed to do, all the way to the tiny herbs in your garden. Now we say that's overkill, right? Tithing to the little herbs. But Jesus says, you should have done that. But he says you shouldn't have forgotten things like justice and mercy and love, because you're focused on the little things and you miss the heart. But what does Jesus mean when he says heart? In the New Testament, the heart is not just our emotions. You have been in Bible class, you've heard me talk about this a lot. In the New Testament, the heart is not used for our emotions. The word heart in the New Testament means the center of our person. It is our core, who we really are. And in the New Testament, the word heart involves the mind, the will, and the emotions. Faith is much more than emotions. There's always been, and I can remember this back to my teenage days, there's always been a group of people who think the more emotion you have in worship, the more God is present. And there's nothing wrong with us feeling emotionally excited or enjoying worship. I'm not saying that. But we do not make worship more spiritual by stirring up people's emotions. And it does not affect the presence of God. Nor is faith just what we do. Now, because of the religious world, churches that we live in, churches of Christ have traditionally preached a lot on obedience and baptism. And those things we must continue to preach on. But if all we preach on is obedience and baptism, and we never talk about changing our hearts into the image of Christ, we've missed the center of everything. So faith is not just about our emotions. It's not just about what we do. And faith is not an academic pursuit. When I was about 15, 16 years old and decided to go down with a Christian and major in Bible, I was feeling pretty big for my britches, I think. And one day I told one of the elders, I think I'll go until I get my PhD. And of course I didn't know what I was talking about. And our elder, who had also been a Bible Christian, said, you will find out that while a PhD may be valuable in teaching in the university, it probably will not help you one bit in working with local churches. And having gone over and earned a bachelor's and a master's degree, he was exactly correct. Faith is not an academic pursuit, something to be studied, debated, and argued in the lecture hall. The life of faith involves all of what makes us what we really are. Not just what we look like, not just what the clothes look like. It involves everything, and it flows outward from our center, involving our mind, our will, and emotions. And that leads us to an important conclusion. The heart is the root of all our problems. Jesus says, out of the heart come evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person, not what we eat. Now, we're in an age when we're very concerned with the environment. There's some need, obviously, to do that. That environment is important. But poverty nor environment is the root of sin. Our hearts are the roots of sin. Now, I am grateful that I did not grow up in the inner city in some gigantic not our environment or our poverty that leads to sin. It is our heart. And the root of our troubles is always where we come from our heart. So when we sin, blaming others for our misdeeds is never completely truthful. We cannot solve all our problems by giving everyone nice houses and spending more money on our schools. And I'm a retired teacher. I'm in favor of spending money on our schools. But spending more money on schools doesn't solve the problems of the heart, because they have their root not in our neighborhood, but in our heart. So the first word is heart. Blessed are the pure, deep inside their core. And that leads us to the fact that in the New Testament, we have this other word called pure. And in the New Testament, it has two main meanings. And follow me on this. The word pure in the New Testament has two main meanings. The first meaning is literally unmixed with anything else. Now, we use this term. I will say to you that this is presented to us as pure water. What does that mean? There's nothing else in there. There's no flavoring, there's no vitamins, there's no added sweeteners. This is just water. It's unmixed with anything else. Therefore, it is pure. And we use the same thing for milk. This is pure milk and so forth. Well, the word meant unmixed with anything else. And because of this, it came to being sincere or without hypocrisy. In other words, when we look at this person, we see what they're doing, we hear what they're saying, there's not mixed motives there. What we see is what they are, and what they say is what they really mean. Their motives are pure, that is, they're just what we see. No hidden agendas, and we do not have to wonder whether they're honest in their seeking of God or not. You see, the pure are honestly and sincerely seeking God, not just going through the motions of some ceremony. Their hearts are honest. Their hearts are honest with themselves and with us. And when we know these kind of people, and there's a lot of people like that that we know, we love to be with these people. People whose hearts are purely seeking God and not putting on a show. David understood this when he prayed, "Give me an undivided heart to revere your name." Psalm 86. Some of us suffer from a divided heart. That is, one part of our heart wants what God offers, and another part of our heart wants what God offers. And David said, pull my heart together, integrate it into one piece, so that all of us want you. James warns us of the danger of being double-minded in chapter 4, verse 8. He says there are people who, one translation is they have two minds or two souls. And there's a temptation to try to hold on to the Lord with one hand and the world with the other. I love my years at Abilene Christian, and they are some of the most important in my life for many different reasons. But while I was there, I developed a theory, and I want to tell you right now that my theory may well be wrong. And some of you college students can tell me whether you think this theory is right. But I knew a lot of wonderful, wonderful people at Abilene, the students. But I also knew students who were sneaking out late and getting drunk and getting in trouble and getting expelled, and students who never went to church and were never involved in any church activities. And I developed a theory that at Abilene Christian, there was a group of people that were sincerely following Christ. They were there for spiritual reasons. They were trying to be better Christians, and they would leave that place ready to serve Christ in different places. And I also developed the theory that there was another group of people that were really not making any pretense at being Christians at all. They didn't go to worship, they misbehaved, they were involved in all kinds of bad activities, and they got themselves in different kinds of trouble. But between those people, it was my theory that there was a larger group. And those people sometimes turned toward Christ, and sometimes were in church, and sometimes were involved in good things, but other times they were pulled to to be with the other group. Now, you can criticize my theory, and I tell you it's a theory, but Jesus is saying that some of us suffer from a divided heart. Not sure whether it is God or the world that we want to hold close to us. James says, the double-minded man will get nothing from the Lord. One of my professors used to call him Mr. Looking Both Ways. He can never decide which way he wants to turn. James is saying our heart must be integrated, worshiping God with all our hearts, not just part. The Psalms are some of the great works of devotion. And it's amazing how often the Psalms talk about having an undivided heart. The references are in your notes, so I'm not going to give you the references. But let me read to you 6 or 8 Psalms that talk about this very topic. I will praise you, my Lord and God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart in the company of the upright in the congregation. Blessed are those who keep his testimonies, who seek him with their whole heart. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. Give me understanding that I might keep your law and observe it with my whole heart. The insolent smear me with lies, but with my whole heart I keep your precepts. With my whole heart I cry, answer me, O Lord. I will keep your statutes. David is praying for a pure heart, not mixed with anything else, but as pure as this water, a heart that's focused on God. Now, that's the first meaning of the word pure in Koine New Testament Greek. That is, unmixed with anything else and thus sincere and united. The other meaning flows from that, and it means cleansed, undefiled, and holy. And both meanings, I believe, apply to what Jesus is talking about when he says create in me a pure heart. He's saying, unite my heart so that it's all focused on you. And when my heart is united, then I can pray, Father, make me pure and holy inside. John looks forward to the time when we will be seeing the Father in heaven. 1 John 3, 1 through 3. See what love the Father has given us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Beloved, we are God's children now. What we will be has not yet been revealed. What's it going to be like in heaven? What will we look like? We don't know. What we do know is this. When he is revealed, we will be like him, for we will see him as he is. And all who have this hope in him purify themselves just as he is pure. So the day will come for every Christian who will be in the presence of God, will be able to see God as he is. No longer will God's holiness and presence have to be veiled. We'll look into the face of God, and God will be pure, and we will be perfectly pure. Now, if that's the destiny and the goal of every Christian, then Christians should make ourselves pure now. Here's a life goal worthy of living. Purity of hearts, like Jesus, who committed no sin, no guile was in his mouth. And here is the challenge that goes with it. None of us will ever achieve purity of heart. Not on this planet. Purity is something we pursue. The Hebrews writer says, pursue the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. So here's the challenge of Jesus. Pursue purity of heart and utter sincerity where my heart is united, and pursue the holiness that is the character of Jesus. And it comes with a blessing. The blessing is the pure in heart will see God. Now, we did not expect, like Moses, to have a miraculous time when God passes by and puts his hand over the rock and we only see his glory. We'll not see God's glory now. Jesus said, No one has ever seen God, who is in the bosom of the Father, but the Son is made known. So how do the pure in heart see God? Well, in all Beatitudes, I believe there's a principle that holds true in all of them. In all Beatitudes, part of the blessing is present, but the biggest part of the blessing is in the future. But while we look forward to what God has for us in the future, there's part of the blessing that's now. So let me ask the question, is there any way we can see God now? Well, we're not going to see him in the way Moses did. We're not going to see him face to face as Jesus did. But we do see Jesus. And when we see Jesus, we see the Father. And I think as much time as we spend, for example, in the letters of Paul or in the book of Revelation, for example, we must always regularly teach and preach the story of Jesus. And as long as I'm here, you're going to see me cycling back into the story of Jesus. Because I think we should tell ourselves the story of Jesus and what? Right on our heart, every word. When we see Jesus, we're seeing the Father. When we look at the Scriptures, which were breathed out by the breath of God himself, we see God plainly there. But also, if we're seeking purity of heart, I believe we see God in nature. Paul says the eternal power and deity of God are clearly perceived in the things that are made. We see God in nature. We see God as he works providentially in the life of Christians. We see God in every answered prayer. And I want to tell you one of the most glorious things about being a Christian, not just the promise we have for the future, but because when I look out here, I see reflected in your faces the glory of God himself. I see in you the glory of my King, which sometimes see, and I love you with the love of my Lord. The American poet wrote these lines that I've always loved. Every common bush is aflame with God, but only those who see take off their shoes. We can go through life seeing God's glory all around us, and our eyes are never open, and we never realize the holiness that's in our presence. Now, I learned that line as part of a long, long poem, an epic poem, and I learned that line years and years ago, and I finally said, I need to read some more of that. And I found the poem, I believe it's called Aurora League, and I looked at that, and I found out the next line of that poem, and I didn't know the next line. Let me read it with the following line. Every common bush is aflame with God, but only those who see take off their shoes. The rest just sit around and pick blackberries. Think about that for a while. The joy is there's coming a time when we see him face to face, just as he is. John says we will see him as he is. And the book of Revelation, chapter 22, his servants will worship him. They will see his face. The sun will be gone, but God will be the light, and there will be no more darkness or night. Because we will see the Father as he is. And only then will we achieve the goal of total purity of heart. I have a sermon I love to preach, and I won't preach it again for a few years, I'm sure, but it's called The Impossible Dream. Purity of heart is part of our impossible dream. God's given us a dream that's bigger than any of us. We can never reach total purity of heart, but it gives us a goal and a direction. It gives us a way to live our life. And it's never a place where we arrive. No one in here can ever say or ever will be able to say, I have achieved perfect purity of heart. But God has always given us a faith that's always a little beyond us. And so we keep reaching forward, and that's what keeps us moving on. When Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart, God is offering us a direction in life, a goal, a dream. And it's a lot better than just picking blackberries. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.
Softly and tenderly,